Thanks for coming to our webinar today. We're just going to give folks a minute or two to join, and then we'll get started. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me put up our presentation for today, and hopefully everyone will leave with some new information. All right, so welcome to our webinar today. We're going to be talking about the AI Treasury Playbook, your first prompts, workflows, and wins. For today, we'll start with a quick introduction to myself and Nihilus, and then we're going to jump right into frameworks, how you can get started with AI, what the different levels of implementation are for your organization, and what might work best for you today. And then we're going to go into some hands-on examples using ChatGPT. Hopefully you'll leave the webinar today understanding a little bit more about how you can use these tools in your everyday work without needing help from IT. And then we'll talk a little bit about what ChatGPT is good for and where you might need to upgrade to a full-on AI platform. And then finally, we'll talk about how to scale AI for your treasury organization and leave some time for Q&A at the end. So a little bit about myself. My name is Emily. I'm the current product manager at Nihilus, leading our AI products focused on forecasting, liquidity optimization, and everything else that's sort of core to your treasury management. And a little bit about Nihilus, we are an AI-powered treasury management system, and we're built for large companies who are often juggling multiple bank accounts, multiple subsidiaries, and cash is really hard to manage. And what our platform does is it gives you visibility into where your cash is, helps you tag all your transactions, and really monitors your cash so we can flag for you where there might be opportunities. For example, if you might want to move cash or invest cash, as well as to flag any risks that are coming up as well. If you're having a cash shortage, or maybe there's some macro environment things as well. So we're really excited to bring you this webinar today about your AI Treasury Playbook. So let's go on and get started. So in this first section, we're going to talk about getting started with AI, what your options are, and how to get your feet wet. So first, the first level of AI is self-service. You're probably already familiar with this today. I'm sure that a lot of folks in this webinar have already played with ChatGPT or Claude, Perplexity, and a bunch of other AI tools out there that you can just sign up for. And what this usually looks like is you're using a simple prompt, or maybe you're even able to upload some data to the self-service tool in order to do, let's call it, quick runs. So you can get instant insights, get it to create a chart for you, or maybe to create a readout of some data in order to create a report, or maybe a lot of us are using it this way just to write some emails. So you're probably familiar with the conversational aspect of these tools. They're not necessarily purpose-built for treasury in particular, but it can help you with a lot of tasks that you might have. And the great thing about it is there's no setup time. You can just create an account, get started right away, and get familiar with what the AI can do. A step up from that is what we call AI-enabled workflows. So these are, let's call it semi-automated workflows where you can use some of these connectors that they have in the technology. For example, you can do things like connect your Google Drive to ChatGPT or to Claude. And what it helps you do is it helps you access data that you have in Drive and in other places without you needing to upload it. For example, it can help you search your Google Drive for your past 2 forecasts, and maybe you want to synthesize that information together and understand how you should get started on your next forecast. Or you can also use the chat to generate scripts or generate code for you to actually automate some of the tasks that you have today. So this is a slightly more advanced version of just, having a text conversation with the chat. And it gives you a little bit more power to do analysis and access your data a little bit more easily. And finally, the sort of gold standard of implementing AI in your company is probably implementing an AI Treasury platform. These are fully integrated systems that connect to your data sources. So they will connect to your bank, they'll connect to your ERP, they'll connect to your AP platforms, anywhere that you might have financial data that you want to use in your current workflows. And so it'll give you real-time visibility, and it's actually autonomous. So you don't necessarily need to trigger it to give you information. It'll send you alerts while it's monitoring cash for things like low balances or high transaction count or large transactions and things like that, so that you don't even have to think about it. It's your partner, and it gives you all the information that you might need as you're taking decisions and working on your everyday tasks. So here, like I just mentioned, the perks are it's always on after you implement it, and you can do things like forecasting without as much manual effort as some of those other AI tools that we just spoke about. Great. So a little bit about what your self-serve AI tools can and can't do. So with something like ChatGPT or Claude, what it's really good for is kind of being a textbook for you. So you can ask it for frameworks or guidelines or how to calculate certain metrics. For example, you can ask it to give you a checklist for how you might want to build your forecast. Or you might ask it for a list of KPIs that you need to think about if you're trying to do X, Y, or Z. It's also really good at analyzing single data set. So if you want to upload your transactions or upload your cash flow and just have it read out to you in plain text what is happening with the numbers, it can do that really well. But where it starts getting a little bit less useful is where your questions and queries might be a little bit more complicated. For example, let's say that you want to build a forecast and you need data from your ERP, you need data from your AP provider, you need data in the emails that your sales team and your billing team are sending to you about certain customers or vendors. And all of that is probably too much for you to clean up and upload to the AI. So there, you'll probably need something like an AI platform to help you build your forecast well. And where the self-service tools also fail is doing something like a complex reconciliation. So for example, if some customers have paid you for multiple invoices and you know that the invoices are in your ERP data, the system can't really do that for you unless you spend a lot of time teaching it. And so that's something that's left better to do with something like an AI platform. All right, so now we'll get to a little bit of fun where we'll go over some prompt templates that you can take with you after this webinar and hopefully tweak and use for your everyday work. So in this first example, we'll talk about something that's probably a big part of many of your workflows, which is categorizing your bank transactions. If you're lucky, you're doing this weekly or maybe monthly. Maybe some of you have so much data that it's too tedious to do at all. So the benefits of categorizing your transactions is the insight it gives you into what's actually happening with the business. What are your inflows, outflows, how do they break down? So let's take a look at why AI can help you with that. All right, so first you'll want to set up a spreadsheet with the data that you need to upload. So in this case, we're giving the AI a list of all the categories we have on the first tab, and then we're feeding in some examples of historical transactions that have been categorized in the past. So you'll see the category column here. And finally, you'll want to feed it the list of transactions that don't yet have a category that you need the AI to actually categorize for you. So let's go to ChatGPT and give it a little bit of context of what you want to do. I need to categorize some bank transactions in order to understand my cash flows. And now you're going to describe to the model what your spreadsheet looks like, so it knows what it's looking at. So in the attached file, you have a categories tab that has a list of all of your categories ready. And then you have another tab that has the historical transactions like we just spoke about. And finally, you're going to tell it, please help me suggest categories for that third tab that has my new transactions. All right, so you're going to upload your file here. This is the same file that we just looked at. And here you'll see it start to work, and it's going to send you back the exact same file that you just uploaded, now with some additional information on the side. So let's expand and take a look. When you're using self-service AI, it's really important to not take for granted the information that's going to spit out. So we're going to scroll through and just double check and eyeball things to make sure they're correct. Here you'll notice a lot of things are tagged as collections. And if you zoom in, you can see it's actually tagged a payroll transaction from ADP as collections. So here, after you check, you can ask the AI, why did you tag this as collections? And it'll explain to you and critique itself on what it might have done wrong. So while it's really helpful in going from, these 50 uncategorized transactions that we uploaded, you still need to do the work of checking. And it's not as easy to use as maybe a platform that you can onboard that is doing most of the work for you and doing it much more accurately than ChatGPT on its own would. So let's move on to another example. So now you have all your transactions tagged and categorized, and you want to think about a forecast. Knowing how your business has been running in the past, what can I do to build my forecast more accurately? So in this example, you're going to give the AI some context into what task you're doing. So you're building a cash flow forecast. You're going to give it a list of historical bank transactions, similar to the one that we just saw before. So it's just a list of all of your bank transactions with the categories on the right-hand side. And you can see here the data is very structured. All the headers are very clear. And now you're going to actually describe the task that you want the AI to do. So what we're going to ask them here to do is just tell me about some patterns in this data. Like, how is my business behaving? How are things performing? And you'll see specifically, we call out that we want the AI to be specific and drill down into recurring transactions and give us information about the timing patterns of any recurring cash movements. Because you're creating a forecast and you want to know, hey, are the things that happen from month to month actually happening at the time that I expect? Is there anything changing about the business that I need to be aware of? And so here you'll see in these initial results, the AI has gone category by category to tell you what the timing is of certain types of transactions when you pay taxes, how much that is, and how that impacts your cash flows. This is really great already, this high level outline, but let's actually try something a little bit different. So, actually, it's a different example, but we'll show you in a different example how you might want the AI to give you a little bit more detailed information. So let's go to that one next. All right, so in this final example, we're sticking with the idea of building a forecast using your AI, but there's an unforeseen event. All of a sudden, your IT team comes knocking and they said, hey, I'm so sorry, but my AWS hosting costs are much higher than what we expected. They just told us now, and you're going to get the bill and we're going to need it to pay right away. Now here in this prompt, you can see that you're giving the AI context into the information you have, which is, I know that my AWS hosting costs are going to be really high. It's affecting me because we were anticipating to be cash flow positive this quarter. And now I need to think about what I might need to do. So you'll see different from the previous examples. We didn't upload any data here. So this is something that you can do if IT says you can't be uploading any information to the AI, or if you don't have an enterprise account. So here, the model has outlined steps for a step. everything from how you might want to reforecast to how you might want to communicate what is happening to the rest of the org. So we're actually going to try to do something a little bit different and see if we get a different response from the AI. So we're just going to add a little extra snippet telling it to think step by step. So what this is going to do is it's going to indicate to the model that you want it to think a little bit harder. You want it to sort of reason through a little bit more thoughtfully what you might want to do in this scenario. So you'll see how in the last example that we had, it gave you a good enough outline, but here you'll see in these results, we get a lot more specificity over exactly what it is that you need to think about, including what you need to do today, what you need to do in the next 48 hours to pin down the overrun. It's going to give you ideas for how you might want to think about the AWS contract and even renegotiate that contract. And it gives you bullet by bullet very specific information about adjustments, other teams to consider, defining the cash gap, how to update your controls so this doesn't happen again. And so this is a really good tip when you're doing something a little bit more advanced where you want the model to be a little bit more thoughtful. You can tell it to think harder or think step by step, and it should give you much more detailed results. All right, so to recap, here are some tips on how you might want to think of prompting the AI. So I'm sure a lot of you have already played with AI and know this like the back of your hand, but always give it a very specific task or question. Like in those examples we spoke about before, tell the model what you want it to do, or ask a very specific question that you want answered. The answer will only get better if you give the model some additional context. So some tips for things you can tell the model are, tell about your role. Are you a treasurer? Are you a controller? Are you a VP of finance? And it'll change the tone and it might change the level of detail depending on what you're telling it about yourself. It's also great when you're giving it a business problem to tell it more about your business or industry. Cash flow is very different from industry to industry. Working capital looks very different. So you might want to hint at the thinking path that you want the AI to go down. And finally, you can also tell a little bit about the audience if you're preparing a report for a specific reason, or maybe you're just brainstorming on your own. The chat will give different types of responses based on who the audience is. So tell it if it's a board presentation, it'll write it in more formal language. If it's just an internal finance team memo, it will use language that you are familiar with. Or maybe you're emailing the sales team, maybe you don't need all the financial jargon in there, and it will change the tone and vocabulary to fit that use case. If there is a specific way that you want the AI to respond, you can always instruct it to give you a specific output. Do you want a chart? Do you want bullets? Do you want sentences? Do you want them to write a Slack message or an email or create a slide? These are all things that it can do. And just know that if you have a specific preference for the tone of voice that you want the AI to use when it's responding to you, or maybe just usually you want it to use as few words as possible or write in paragraphs, whatever it might be. If you tell the model to remember, hey, remember that I prefer responses in bullet points, any other query that you give it afterwards, unless you instruct otherwise, is going to come in bullet point form. So this is a really good tip if you feel like you're tweaking the response every single time, you just want it to remember what you prefer, you can tell it to remember, and it's going to know that for you as a user. Now, when you're giving data to the AI, again, this is for self-service AI. When you're uploading your own data, instead of it being connected to the data sources directly, you're going to want to do some data preparation. So if you remember in those examples, the spreadsheets that we used, all the data is very structured. We had it in Excel. This works really well for numbers. The AI can also consume PDF or text, but just know, depending on how well it read and converted the images into text, some of the calculations might be wrong if you're dealing with numbers. I'm sure a lot of you know this, but to the best of your ability, if you have dates in your data, try to standardize it so it's not ambiguous. so that if you want to do a monthly analysis, the AI knows what is a month, what is a day. You're going to want to define your column headers. If you remember in the categorization example that we gave, we kind of described our file a little bit to the AI. You can do the same thing in the prompt, or you can have a different tab in your Excel file to describe the data itself. If any of your headers can be ambiguous, for example, you have value date and transaction date or something else like that, you might want to also explain to the AI how you interpret those things. You're going to want to stick to consistent naming as well. So if you have payroll, for example, payroll transactions in your data, sometimes they might be labeled payroll. Sometimes you say it's salaries. Sometimes you say it's bonuses, etc. You're going to just want to standardize the naming a bit. So, when the model's aggregating information for you, it can be a little bit cleaner. And then finally, and this is optional, you probably should remove duplicates from your data. But as a tip, you can actually use the AI itself to dedupe the data. Just when you do that and you're asking it to remove duplicates, to do it most accurately, just add a snippet, tell it to write code, and it's going to do it in a much more clean way than normal. All right, finally, some techniques. You saw some of these in the examples, but if you want a really accurate response, always try to give examples. Again, in the categorization prompt that we gave it, we upload an entire list of prior examples for the model to work with. Even if let's say you're writing a report, you can give it examples. Hey, these are monthly summaries that I liked in the past, and please try to write them like this. You don't even have to describe what you like about it or don't like about it. If you give it good, I like this, I don't like that, the model is really good at figuring out what the descriptions actually look like or what you're looking for without you needing to put it into words. So give it examples. It can be a file. You can copy and paste if it's just text into the prompt. Now, some more advanced tips and tricks you can use are asking the model to critique its response. So as we saw before, the model can make mistakes. So after you get a response, you can just say back to it, this doesn't quite fit what I was looking for, critique your response. And so what you'll see is a model will go through and sort of walk through, this is what I did well in that response. This is what seems wrong. Would you like me to make any adjustments? And you can take its suggestions as needed. This is also really good if you don't know how to put into words what you might not like about a response. Ask the AI to critique itself, and you can take the language that they're using to say what's good or bad and feed it back to itself to improve the answer that you want. So for example, let's say you're creating a summary for your CFO of comparing the variance in your cash flow from forecast. And the response that the AI gave you is a little bit long. It's not formatted the way that you want, so on and so forth. Just tell the AI to critique the response. It's going to tell you maybe it's a little bit long, maybe the language that I'm using is not correct, etc. And then you can go back and ask it to adjust. And finally, we saw this in the most recent example that we shared. If you tell the model to think hard or think step by step, it's going to reason through and do a deeper analysis. This is really great when you're doing something like scenario planning where it's a little bit more complex, or maybe you're doing some sort of risk analysis and you want more than just surface level kind of textbook information. And this is going to give you much more accurate and thoughtful responses. Something else you can try is once you get a response you don't think is thoughtful enough, you can go back to the AI and say, hey, walk me through your reasoning step by step. So you can always go and ask the model to go a little bit deeper. All right. I'm going to pause here so folks can scan if they would like. We have a great resource for you where we've prepared 25 different AI prompts that can get you started, give you some ideas for how to get your feet wet, or if you haven't thought about certain tasks that you can automate or get help with. You can go on and download this list of prompts that we have and play with them on your own. Great. So now let's talk a little bit about, we know self-service AI is really amazing, but it falls short in some of the use cases that might be important for you. So some limitations are it is prone to hallucination. It might add data that never existed. It might, for some reason, not use data that you gave it. It might skip a transaction here or there. All of these things are possible. In addition, depending on what your company's AI policy is, you probably can't upload your sensitive company information or PII. So you might be limited in the use cases that you can get the self-service AI to work for you. Not everything is going to be accurate all the time, especially when it comes to numbers. There are some tips, like we said before, write code, format your data as a CSV that will help this, but you're always going to need to double check the output to make sure that everything makes sense. And perhaps the biggest limitation is the fact that self-service AI is not actually proactive. It's not going to monitor or run any real-time analysis for you. You're always going to need to prompt it to tell it to do something. So here, I just want to pause and maybe introduce a concept. So when we spoke at the beginning of the webinar about platforms, what's great about a lot of platforms is the fact that they are autonomous. They run on their own. They're working for you in the background. And the reason for that is because they're actually agentic. So think about the traditional like LLMs and models that you have access to. Those are very much like textbooks that you can reference. They can tell you how to do something, but they're not going to take action. The textbook is not going to do anything for you. But when you're working with an agentic platform where you're working with agents, it's like working with your colleagues or working with your banking advisors, your investment advisors. These people who both have deep context on your business are really good at what they do, and they can actually assist you with taking action on something that you need. So we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to scaling AI and implementing platforms, but just keep that in mind. So here you have a little side-by-side look at self-service AI versus the AI platform. So again, like we mentioned before, self-service, really good at giving you frameworks, really good at working with single data sets, but can't get more complex than that. They're ad hoc as opposed to autonomous and in real time. You're always going to have to import your data and export it instead of just having your data directly connected. And you're always going to need to check for accuracy instead of having some of those controls built into a full-on platform. Great, so let's take a look at an example of a use case using an actual AI platform. So we're going to show you in this instance how Nihilus works, and we're going to show you how Nihilus platform helps you create a forecast better. So let's run through. So here, you'll see with the Nihilus AI assistant, you can tell it to create, let's say, a 13-week forecast. So we're going to work on collections specifically. And the first thing the agent does for you is, like an advisor says, hey, there's a couple of steps to planning your forecast. You'll want to look at historical trends, customer behavior, load in your ERP data, and then load in any macro factors. So we'll go step by step. So let's start with the first step, which is loading in your historical data and how collections has trended in the past. So what the system will do now is, because your historicals are connected, it has all of your previous bank information, it's going to create a baseline for you. And here you can see up at the top, it's filled in your 13-week forecast baseline, and it explains to you how we got there. So for example, Q2, typically you have higher collections. Towards the end of the quarter especially, things see a bump, and week from week, there's a variance as well. So it's considering all of these things when building your baseline. And it also tests, based on your historicals and this method that we've used, it's usually about 77% accurate. It's not 100% yet, but you know that your baseline is at least 77% accurate. So next, you'll layer in some information about actually your customer payment behavior. So in general, collections moves this way, but actually let's look at big customers and how they might impact that forecast. So here you can see that the AI is preparing a more thorough response. Up at the top, it's going to give you some more information about the forecast, as well as some information about your different customers. So let's take a look here. Up at the top, it's going to give you the original baseline created, a new information about based on your customer invoices that you have, what you might want to change. And then it breaks down for you. These are the different types of customers or entities where you receive payments. This is how much you receive, how often, so on and so forth. So you have a sense of what information it's using to create your forecast. And now it's going to tell you, hey, based on what I know about your customers, here's how I've adjusted your forecast. I've pushed forward some collections. I've reduced some weeks where I know that your customers are less likely to pay. And now we've gone from 77% accuracy to 87%. So just from the second step, we have a 10% change. So in this example, you can see, with the system, it's much easier to build a forecast. You're actually building the forecast within the system itself instead of taking some information from the AI in order to build your own forecast. So it's a really big change and a really exciting new way for you to work. All right, so how do you choose the right AI approach for your team? Some self-service AI might be great for some teams that are just starting out, and others might want to dive right into onboarding an AI platform. So here's how to think about this. If your team, doesn't really have complex operations right now and you don't have budget to implement an AI tool, you can use self-service AI just for quick one-off answers or to help advise you on how you might want to think about problems that you have. It's great for learning and experimentation. And again, if you don't need to give it too much data, if you don't need it to actually work with your financial data, it's a great option. Now, if your team wants something a bit more advanced, you actually want to level up what you're doing in your organization. You're going to want to opt for an always-on automated system to help you do forecasting, reporting, even automating some of the rote tasks like categorization and things like that. If you want direct connections to your banks, your ERP, your investment accounts, your AP providers, anything else like that, and it's really important for you to have that information consolidated, a platform is a much better option than self-service AI. You're still going to need to do all your own data cleanup and data preparation if you choose self-service, but with a platform, it takes a lot of that legwork out for you. So also, if your business is already growing, it's really large, maybe you're backed by a private equity firm and you grow by acquisition, your data volumes are just constantly expanding. And so if you have a huge volume of data and you need to make sense of it and how to use it for your forecast, a platform is a much better choice. And again, like we've said, it's good at giving you real-time insights and really helping you reduce manual work instead of sort of the one-off things that you can do with self-service AI. We want to offer you an approach to think about, when you might be ready for an AI platform, how to get you started, how to learn about AI. So we have a crawl, walk, run framework for how to think about this. So in the first stage, you're really learning and experimenting. So just have everyone on your team try a simple AI tool, a ChatGPT, Claude, whatever works for you, for simple, low risk tasks. I encourage everyone, even if you're on the finance team, you can use the AI to help you write emails. Just get comfortable with conversing with it and really understanding how it thinks, how it works. So use it for low risk tasks. Start with email, start with writing, and then start adding in things that might have to do with numbers. That's where you might want to test with small or non-sensitive data sets. And really encourage everyone on the team to get their hands wet. I would say that that's a really important building block for having successful AI implementation as well is just getting everyone on the team excited, involved, and eager to use this technology. So once everyone kind of knows what's going on with AI, they want to do slightly more advanced things and actually change the way that they work, you can go to the walk stage where you'll start planning and building the case for why you want to bring on an AI platform. So here you'll want to understand what are my high impact and repeatable workflows. What's something that I do monthly? What are the reports that I prepare monthly? What are the requests that I get from my bankers or from my lenders on a monthly basis that I don't prepare for all the time? And so it's always kind of like really hard to prepare these off the cuff. So what are these high impact repeatable workflows that are really painful for you, that involve a lot of data, a lot of cleaning up of data? Think about those things. Those are really best done with AI. And so you'll want to start building a case, thinking about how to measure ROI. And just a note on this, think about the ROI for your business in terms of cost savings, time savings, maybe even the fact that the AI can flag opportunities that you didn't notice before. There could be actual returns if you were to implement an AI platform. But you also want to think, how do I want to compete? How do I want my finance team to perform versus my competitors? There is that element here where everyone is so eager to bring AI into their organization that you will be behind if you don't. So also take this time to understand what the landscape is, vet any vendors that you might want to use, call up a friend, use G2 Crowd, whatever it is, do your research and pick the vendors that you think might work best for you. And then finally, when you're ready, you'll start onboarding the AI platform. You'll start by integrating all of your data sources, and then going case by case, automating all of the different workflows that you need. And once you're at this stage, you'll start getting real-time insights across the business. You'll probably want to have, working with your success team at your vendor, you'll want to have a plan for which team to start with, how to educate other teams about the work that's being done, because really this platform can become the center of collaboration across your entire organization. All right. And finally, for just some tips, as you guys are thinking about this, start with a clear objective. Make sure that you have in mind at least one or two things that you want the AI to be able to do, whether it's simple or complicated. Know your data. The AI can only give you good information if the data going in is pretty clean as well. So this means things like if you want the AI to be able to predict when customers pay, for example, you probably need pretty clean records for how that customer has paid in the past. If there are duplicate invoices, you might want to remove them, things like that. So understand a little bit better with your IT team how you might want to clean up your data. And by the way, your vendors will be able to help you out with this as well. And of course, engage your leadership in IT really early. I'm sure most people are already supportive, but your IT team will play a big part in helping you align on security, compliance, and integration needs. All right, so that I know this was a lot of information, but luckily we have, I believe, saved 5 minutes for Q&A. So let's take a look. I see a lot of questions here in the chat. Alrighty. Give me 1 second to pull up the questions. All right. So someone asked, do I need to be technical to implement or use an AI platform like Nihilus? Definitely not. It's a really good question. Platforms like Nihilus, so we're an AI-powered treasury management system. We're built, our users are treasurers. We don't expect them at all to be technical. In fact, the goal of our platform is to be able to present the technology in a way that is easy for you to use. So if you're comfortable with Excel, a lot of parts of our platform work very similarly to Excel. The one piece that is, let's say, different is something that you'll get more and more familiar with, which is that chat component. But as long as you're getting familiar with how to converse with AI, I think it's a very low barrier to entry. So you should be totally good from that perspective. Someone asked, what is the accuracy difference between asking directly through the general GPT site or using a customized finance version? That's a really great question. So like we looked before, if you're just using ChatGPT or Claude or whomever, you're going to need to double check all of the responses. If you're using a customized system like Nihilus, in that demo that we showed you, it's going to walk you through step by step what you need to do so that you are, it's not only telling you, hey, these are the 4 steps to building a forecast. It walks you through each step. You take action at each step to actually load in the numbers, and it guides you and is connected to your data in order to be able to do that. In terms of accuracy, the AI platforms that are purpose built to do something specific, so in our case, like forecasting or liquidity optimization, typically have a lot of checks running in the background to make sure that 1, the data going in is accurate, and 2, the data coming out of it is accurate. So we have layers of understanding of what the data should look like, what the format of something should look like, is for a finance user much better than ChatGPT. And so we take a lot of care around numbers and around information. And so it's definitely going to give you, I think, more precision and more accuracy when it comes to answers that you get. Alrighty. Someone asked, how do I get buy-in from leadership to invest in Treasury or AI tools? So like we mentioned before, you really want to think about time savings and you want to think about staying competitive and you want to think about potentially like the AI being able to surface, for example, optimization opportunities to you for your cash that you might not have seen before. So if you're typically, I would say leadership is worried about a couple things. One is cost, and the other is security. And so I think what you can mention to them is on the cost side, at the end of the day, you don't want the finance team to scale linearly with the amount of work that you have to do. That's one. And 2, have your leadership think about the missed opportunities that you've had. I would say, like, if there's a project that you guys didn't pick up because there was so much work to do, mention that, hey, like, for example, if we had our analysts, if we had automated all of this data collection and data cleanup work that they did, we could have actually focused on this bigger project around renegotiating with our banks what our interest rates should be. And so show them where the missed opportunities are, like what hasn't been getting done or what projects you guys haven't been jumping on because you haven't had enough time. And I think that's a really good starting point to get them thinking about how AI can really help level up the organization. What are signs that my team is ready to move on from ChatGPT to something more advanced or not self-service? Really important signs to watch out for is if your team is saying, hey, I really wish I could be uploading data, or hey, I'm getting stuck with ChatGPT because I need it to I've maxed out the number of rows that I can upload. I'm trying to give it a year's worth of data in order to help me forecast. Basically, once your team really wants to do advanced tasks with AI, that's when you might want to move forward. Or you hear from your team, hey, I built this in the AI, really worked great once. It built this great report, but I don't want to keep going back and ask it every time I need a report. I just wanted to send it to me. When you start hearing your team want to automate things that they have already built or tried to do in the AI, that's a great hint that you're probably ready for an AI platform. And generally, I would say, as long as your team has gotten pretty familiar, if they've tried once or twice and they're at the point where they're already using self-service AI, let's say at least once a week, they're comfortable. You can level up to something more advanced. Great. When choosing a specialized, oh, we're out of time. So I'll see if I can answer this one. But when choosing a specialized AI platform, what are some things to watch out for? Many platforms have strong sales teams that might struggle to deliver on the technology front. This is a really good point. I think you'll want to understand with the vendor, have it walk through specific use cases that you want to solve. Maybe you want to suggest, hey, if I give you some of my own data, show me how something could work with my own data, what this would look like, so you really understand what the output you'll get is with the system. And have them show you, for example, hey, show me what your product roadmap is. Tell me what exists today and what is coming in the next 3, 6, 9 months. This is something that vendors should have off the bat, so you can understand, okay, these things that they've shown me in the demo is coming 3 months from now. I'll have it by the time I onboard. So really just look into roadmap and see if the vendor is willing to uh, run any sort of proof of concept or something else like that with you. All right, so we're out of time for questions. I just want to make sure that to put up one more slide for everyone. So again, thank you so much for joining. I think we covered a lot of information, so reach out to us if you want to know more, reach out to us if you want to see a demo, a more thorough demo of what Nihilist can do, but we will be sending everyone information about any upcoming sessions for our AI masterclasses. But you'll also get a new guide that's coming out in the next couple of weeks on everything we spoke about today about how to implement AI for cash and treasury management. It goes much deeper into this crawl, walk, run framework that we just spoke about. And subscribe to our newsletter. You'll get a lot more content there from us. For example, like the prompts guide that we shared earlier, and everything else like that that you might need in order to learn more about AI. Cool. So I'll leave the slide up, but thanks again, everyone, for joining. Hope to chat with you guys at another time. And I hope everyone walks away and tries to do something with AI today. All right. Thank you.